Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Excelcast. I'm your host, Joe Parker, and today I have my cousin and friend, Brian Steiger. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So just tell us a little bit about like what you've been getting into lately and how life's been going for you.
Um, Life's been pretty good. I This past year I graduated from physical therapy school, and I'm a physical therapist now on Long Island. Um, so I'm treating at a hospital and kind of just figuring out what adult life is supposed to look like. Um, I'm currently still living in my parents' basement, but I'm okay with that. No rent, not really having any bills, but hopefully be out by 2024. We'll see. Um, and then that's pretty much it. Just normal working every day, trying to keep up with my cousin and my friends as much as I can. Social life is important for sure. That's it.
Yeah, so how is it, being through going through doctorate school to become a physical therapist and physical therapy school? I'm not too sure. Is there like a difference between like you have to kind of take classes in one realm and then shift over to the other realm, or is it all encompassing when it comes to that?
What realms are you talking about? We
So
do
like,
take like business classes if that's what you're trying to get at, like a well-rounded physical therapist. Um,
okay,
I don't know if that's what you were
I
talking
was
about.
I was more referring to like you have to take like medical classes and then take like physical therapy specialized medical classes, like if that makes sense, like how certain doctors have certain specialties but they kind of have to have like this overall general understanding of the medical field and medicine, things like that.
There was definitely specific classes based on if we were talking about orthopedics or neurological disorders and how to treat them versus like GI versus um, all the realms of pediatrics, lymphatics, like that kind of stuff in terms of specialty. But we have to know all of it for like the board exam.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You have to be have to have a lot big understanding of a lot of different you know, realms and things like that. It definitely takes a lot of concentration and focus while at the same time being able to put your hands in a bunch of different pots. So that's a skill that you definitely have to master if you want to become a physical therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So today you wanted to get into forgiveness, though, even though, you have definitely excelled at being a physical therapist and in your studies, I've seen it firsthand, but you wanted to get into the word forgiveness. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about what has inspired you to bring that podcast and, made you want to talk about it?
So on a daily basis, I talk to people. On a daily basis, I have 30 minutes with each one of my patients, which not every physical therapist actually gets. The bigger companies, you're seeing a patient every 15 minutes, anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. So anywhere from 3 to 4 patients an hour. You don't have time to talk to them and get to know them like it's as much as I do. Okay.
Yeah.
I also do something called cardio and pulmonary where I'm working with a patient, like a group of patients for an hour, just, anywhere from 6 to 8 people. So like I actually get a lot of time to speak with them. And one thing that has stuck out in my mind, specifically with any of my chronic pain or patients that are clearly depressed and their pain is because of this depression and or like yes they may have orthopedic issues, like if they have low back pain, like they probably have low back pain, but it's only being um, increased by this sadness, depression, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of it isn't necessarily just because they're sad, like they something happened in their life and they haven't gotten over it yet. And I feel like something that I have talked about with them is like, why can't you forgive that significant other? Why can't you forgive yourself? Why can't you forgive the person that did you wrong and move on from that? I was like, it's been 1 month, it's been 10 years. Don't you see that this is still eating at you and making you have a worse quality of life at this point because you couldn't just do one thing and forgive a person, So that's why I wanted to talk about forgiveness on top of my own like struggles with forgiving myself, forgiving family members, forgiving friends, all that stuff. I just think it's important to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like even with you having those people in your, physical therapy sessions, and you're asking them, why don't you forgive this person? Why don't you forgive that person? Why don't you forgive yourself? It's kind of like a question back to you. You know what I mean? Like, you're asking them, but then you kind of realize, like, hey, I need to forgive myself as well. And I've often found myself doing that a lot, actually. Is like, I'm like, well, why don't you just do this? And why don't you just do that, when I'm giving other people advice or talking to other people? And I'm like, wait, do I do that? Maybe I should do that. And Duncan Trussell, actually, he's on Joe Rogan's podcast a lot. And he's like, my life got a lot better when I stopped giving people advice. And just whenever a piece of advice popped in my mind, and I was going to give it to someone, I just took it and just did it myself. And my life started to get a lot better. So I love that example because, you're kind of asking other people, um, why this, why that, but then you also have your own experiences. So what are some of those experiences, get as specific as you want to get, but, what have you been going through personally on that level?
Um, well, first off, family is hard,
Yeah.
especially with you don't choose your family, you're given your family.
Yep.
So you never really want, at least in a family that wants to stay together, it's often hard when one person strays from the pack and doesn't necessarily do what's in the best interest of the family and or the best interest of themselves. They're just doing, I guess it is the best interest for themselves, and that's why they're not doing it for the family, but
Is it
they kind
though?
of lose. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
possibly,
Yeah.
depending on the situation, possibly. um, Not always do you have to make the decision for the group, but you should be thinking about the group when you make the decision, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
Yes.
um, I feel like I myself have had problems in the last 2 years or so with certain things that are going on within my family, and I need to learn to forgive those people of and let that baggage go because it's eating at me. When somebody changes for the worse, or you grow up with someone and they're a certain way, and then they decide that they don't want to be the person that they were before, and you don't recognize them anymore, it obviously made me upset enough to feel like I need to come onto this podcast and actually think about this stuff because it definitely was hurting me. It's definitely hurting him, and I don't want that relationship with that person anymore. I'd rather just be okay with him and forgive him for being a human, for making his own decisions and maybe making a mistake, whether that's because I feel like it's a mistake or it actually is a mistake.
Yeah, I feel like especially when we look up to someone and we admire someone as a role model, when they make that mistake, you're kind of like, well, dude, like, I looked up to you. So now where do I look? And you kind of get not lost, but you have to redirect yourself, especially if you invested so much of your energy and thought into how to be into what that person's doing. And then they kind of stray from what they're doing. You're like, well, I know in my head and my heart that I don't want to stray from this. I don't want to stray from being, what you consider to be a good person, because that's the example that he set for you, or examples that he set for you. And, I feel like we sometimes that's what's frustrating for us too. And maybe if you hold someone too high on a pedestal, you have to forgive yourself for doing that because they set such great examples. And, it kind of may like mess with you a little bit when they stray from that path because you don't know what to think. So, how did you forgive yourself when that specific situation came about?
Well, the first thing I did was I called my cousin Joe and we had a conversation, and and we had talked about coming on the podcast and what I wanted to talk about, and it took me like probably close to a month. I guess you've been doing the podcast for just over a month,
Yeah,
like
the video
one
one.
to 2 months. Yeah, the video stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, and then I was seeing other people come on here and use like empowering words like courage and motivation, and I thought I was just trying to not rewrite the wheel, but trying to pick something different. And then I kind of just looked to what was going on in my life and I know we had the conversation, and I was like, I need to learn to just forgive this man. Like, it's not his fault. He went through something that I can't necessarily think about, and he made some decisions that I didn't necessarily agree with. So why I wanted to pick forgiveness was because I felt like I was looking back at myself. Like, I also was listening to a podcast or whatever, and I forget who said it, but he was like, if you're harping on something in a relationship, whether it's a family or a personal relationship, you probably should look back onto yourself. Like, if you're
Yeah.
getting mad at somebody for something, look back into yourself and see if that's actually something that you need to work on, and that's why you're projecting that onto this person. And I felt like I'm necessarily that, like, I'm a good example of that. Like, I don't necessarily forgive myself that easy. I feel like I'm hard on myself, um, and that's why I feel like I need to work on that. Like, love yourself, forgive yourself first, and then learn to forgive the people around you that wronged you.
Yeah. You're a very high performance individual, and you're very particular, and you like to get things done almost to a perfectionist standard. And sometimes, perfect is actually the enemy of good, because you feel like if you don't hit that perfection all the time, that it's not going to be good, where in fact it is.
Yeah, you know, I like certain things. When I say I'm going to do something, I try my best to make sure that I keep that promise and I do it. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist. I through throughout my schooling, I didn't necessarily need to get 100, which was fine, which was good for my mental health for sure. I
Yeah.
forgave myself for not getting 100, not getting an A. It was fine. But I do hold myself to a higher standard. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying that you forgave yourself for not getting 100, though.
You know what I mean? Like,
Just today.
an A. B's were completely fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I got you. I got you.
So
Maybe I just looked up to you in that standard because you were like I'd be like, yo, you want to hang out? And just at the time, like my mind wasn't, I wasn't focused on my studies, to be honest, which I
yeah.
am. But
Mhm.
I'd be like, yo, you want to hang out? And you'd be like, no, I got to study. I'm like, you got to study, dude. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay. I was like, all right, study. So in my mind, you were just the one that was always like, because everyone else was like, yeah, sure, yeah, sure, yeah, sure. But you're the one that was like, no, I got to study. And I was just
Yeah.
like, wow, he really like cares about his studies. You know what I mean? So I'd be like, okay. Um, but yeah, so I always looked up to you in that regard. When I thought of a good student, I thought of Brian Steiger. Like I didn't think of anyone
Appreciate that.
else. So, yeah. Um, yeah. So how did that play a role in? I mean, I know that it takes a lot of studying to become a physical therapist, but how have you taken your ability to study and observe things in your daily life and in your family life and kind of translate it into, you know, how you think about certain things when it comes to what's going on in your family?
Being in the medical field and being a healthcare worker, healthcare professional, you realize that regardless of what you're going through, somebody else has got it worse,
Mm,
and it actually makes you respect. And obviously, if you're in any kind of healthcare field, like, you have to have empathy. I don't understand. It should be a requirement. I don't
yeah,
understand how you get into that field and not be some sort of empathetic person and willing to listen and willing to give, advice and or just, positive remarks towards that person, trying to help them in any way possible. So, like, physical therapy in and of itself has taught me that, when I'm feeling down, or I feel like I'm pitying myself, or like I want somebody to give me encouragement, just realize that somebody's got it worse. Because I've heard, for every bad story that I've heard 100 more that are
yeah,
just terrible. So I definitely take that into account with how physical therapy has kind of shaped the way that I go about doing stuff in my life. I definitely learned a lot through my time at King's when we were there, to my 3 years at home, learning in a professional career, like professional setting, with people that were of all ages. Like, I had people that were my age right out of school, and then up to 33, right? So
yeah,
they obviously had experiences that I haven't had, just like I've had experiences that they haven't had that has completely shaped their life. And every single day we're getting new experiences and constantly changing the way that we're thinking. And you know, I think that's how physical therapy has helped transition me to the adult world and how to think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially with people who have it worse than you, it makes you really want to be like, well, I might as well be positive because you have someone that comes in and they have like, say, phantom pain in their leg. The leg that's not even there. Phantom
Mhm.
pain is when you feel like something hurts, but it's actually not even there. It's a common symptom when it comes to, people who lose
Amputees.
limbs. Yeah. Um, and it's just like they can't do anything about that except change their mind and change how they're thinking about it. And I don't even know, you know, quite to the extent that they're able to do that. I don't know the symptoms or like, how deep that goes. But it's kind of like that. When you see someone that has that, it's kind of a reminder to you that, dude, you don't have it that bad. Like, it's a phantom pain. Like, it's not even there. It's not even real. You're just focusing on the wrong body part or part of your life right now. And I feel like that's something that people should definitely take into account is you need to focus on those good things. You need to focus not to be insensitive, but like you need to focus on the rest of your body that you do have and not the part of your body that you don't have. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's even insensitive. It's kind of just an analogy, but
It's not insensitive.
yeah,
It's the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's
yeah,
the reason that we feel pain is because the brain tells us we're feeling pain. So if you tell the brain that we're not feeling pain, then we're not feeling pain. It's you
yeah,
need to change your mindset. I have plenty of patients, and I shouldn't say plenty. Plenty is a big word, but I've had patients in the past with chronic low back pain that are consistently not getting better for one reason or another, and has multiple stints in physical therapy. And they, I have to have a conversation with them on the eval, saying like, "Hey, I've seen you've been in physical therapy 3 or 4 times before this for the same problem." I was like, "Has it ever gotten better?" And they say, "No, it's terrible. 10 out of 10 pain. I need pain medication to get over it." I was like, "You need to change your mindset now because otherwise it's not going to get better." And then I explained to them that this is how we feel pain, and that's what it is. So if you can rework your mind, figure out what you're grateful for. I was gearing up for this podcast. I was looking into other stuff on motivational speakers and this and that, and I just came across something by Steve Harvey, who I think is hilarious. Every
yeah,
time I see a clip of him, like I do laugh. And he said, every time you start overthinking, every time the negative thoughts enter your head, stop. Tell your brain to stop and just think about what you're grateful for. Because those negative thoughts, one may be true, one may not be true, might be your brain just trying to reorganize itself and try to make sense of a situation that you can't make sense of.
yeah.
Stop, figure out what you're grateful for, stick with that, and you'll see that you'll definitely feel better after it. That kind of stuck with me as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like reinforcing that life is good and life is okay. And there are different things that you can go to, especially when it comes to like yourself, right? If you're like, oh, I'm stupid, right? No, you're not. You've gotten all A's and B's throughout all of you're capable and you're able to do things. That one thing you may have just not done well, but you can learn how to do it well. And there's various different aspects and perspectives that you can take when it comes to being a better person and being a more full person, capable person. And you need to see that based on the past experiences that you've had. And I feel like your past experiences have definitely influenced who you are now and how you are now. So, what would you say were like some key defining moments that helped you become who you are?
Um, Defining moments, I think when I lost, I got in trouble at school by my coach, and he took something away from me, and
Yeah.
I didn't get it back. I had to earn it back for the next 6 months. I was trying to
Mm.
earn it back. I was doing the same stuff that I was supposed to be doing, but I made a mistake. I not didn't necessarily think I was above other people, but I didn't realize the importance of something that I had missed, and I got in trouble for it. And he took something away from me, And I didn't necessarily have that before that moment. And I regretted doing it, but also didn't see the bigger picture on why he had to discipline me the way he did. But I believe it's a deciding moment, because before that, I never really did anything bad, and I never really got in trouble for much. I was
Mm,
always not. I wouldn't say a goody two shoes or a kiss up. I was just a good person. Like, I would go out of my way for the person next to me. That's just how I've always been. I've been told I'm a giver. Okay,
really?
I'm willing to give the shirt off my back if you need it. So before that, I was never really disciplined. I didn't really know what it meant to get something actually taken away from you. Some reinforcement. So I believe that was a defining moment in my career, and that's something that I've learned. I've learned to forgive him for that, because for a while I was very, very mad at him. Somebody that I looked up to, somebody that I looked up to as a father. Like, I was very upset about the entire situation. But I feel like, as much as I still joke about it and I still talk about it, because it didn't just affect me, it affected everyone around me as well.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I learned to forgive him for that. And it made me feel better about the entire situation, because I did learn something from it. He did his job. He taught me a lesson. And that was that I need to make a choice for the good of the team versus what I wanted to do, regardless of the minuscule details of what the choice was. Just to not, bore everyone with the actual details of it. Um, it wasn't anything crazy. I just decided that I wasn't going to go to practice for one
yeah,
reason or another, and that hurt the team. So it
yeah,
makes sense why I needed to be disciplined. So that was something that I learned from that, was, you need to think of the good of the team first. You don't just think about yourself, which I think can play out in life. You most of the time, people are working on teams, regardless of what job you're in. You have coworkers for the most part, unless you own your own business. But even that, you need people helping you. So
yeah. Even
you
then,
got
you
to
need
make a decision.
suppliers. You need like you have tech support if you have an online
Yeah,
company. You have to be nice to those people, or else they're just gonna hang up on
yeah,
you. Yeah,
yeah. When you need them, they're not going to be there for you. That's why you got to go out of your way to make sure that you know we're working cohesively. Yes, if you're the boss, you're going to make some bad decisions, just like he had to. But
yeah,
the workers, you gotta do what's best for the entire group. So that's something that I learned for sure.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, I wouldn't say that it was a bad decision. Like, you mean like hard decision, like a hard decision where like
my decision to do what I did, or his decision to do what he did.
his decision to do what he did. It was
I think it
probably
was a hard
hard.
decision. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a hard decision for him.
yeah,
Um,
because he easily could have fell into the trap of, well, 99 times out of 100, Brian's a great kid, so this one time I can let it slide. But then
yeah,
it would have been a slippery slope for you and for him and for the whole team. So he knew that even though you were a great kid, he couldn't let that slide because
mhm,
he knew you had a standard and he wasn't going to let you lower your standard. Or, I mean, it was for him because he didn't want to lower his team standard. But in the end, I think it was for you, really, because he's like, Brian, like, this isn't you. So I'm not going to accept this because I accept you and I love you, and that ain't you.
yeah,
So I'm not going to accept that. And I feel like a lot of times people get caught up in the, well, you don't love me, you don't care about me, because someone has the courage to voice an opinion like that and discipline someone like that. And it's like, no, I do. I do love you. I do care about you, which is why I'm disciplining you, because you have a certain standard that you need to live up to and that you need to maintain. And I'm not going to let you fall short of that.
yeah. No, I think at the end of the day, he did me a favor, as hard as it was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think, and prior to that, I didn't necessarily have any defining moments. Like, I remember like trying to write college essays and being like, what was something that changed your outlook, or an obstacle that you had to overcome? And like, I'm thankful enough that I didn't have too many obstacles growing up. I came from a good family, like middle class parents that worked hard, and I didn't have too many no's from them. Like, not that I was always asking for the craziest things, but I didn't necessarily have too many obstacles growing up. Like, it was pretty smooth sailing. I had a great childhood, I felt like. So trying to write those essays was always hard. But when that hit me, it then, which didn't hit me all the way until senior year, like, I had a lot of time to do whatever I wanted, but that definitely was a defining moment. On top of, some stuff through PT school and like relationships and just trying to navigate, how you're going to spend the next, however many years. I just passed my quarter life crisis, so now, I'll be closer to 30 in like a month. Well, we'll both be a little bit older in a month too.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll hit quarter life here in about a little under a month. Yeah,
yeah. So, trying to that's stressing me out for sure. Like, you're in the middle point of, you got people who are still doing stuff that they were doing in high school, and then you got other people that are getting married and having kids, and it's really weird. It's frustrating. It's um, it's just confusing, and we're pushing one way or another on it right now. I'm
well,
definitely
hopefully
in a
not the
better.
high school thing.
Yeah. No. Oh. No. 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 I'm saying like no. I'm definitely leaning towards the right. The let's move on with our lives and figure
Yeah,
out how I
yeah.
want it to look,
Oh,
because I think getting a job too, like the adult
yeah,
life, that was something that was defining as well. Um, but I want to move this way, and I feel like that forgiving the person that was before I started that job,
yeah.
maybe that was another defining moment. Like, that's a huge milestone for me, because I didn't have a job prior to that. Like,
Mm,
I I worked for my dad. Like, I made money. I just didn't have an actual big boy job. Like, so
yeah,
once I got that, I passed my exam, started working 5 days later. I that was a moment. Halloween 2022 was the you're going to leave this side behind and let it come out a little bit every so often when you want to have a good time. But the other side is, you're an adult now. Like, you need to figure your stuff out and try to enjoy the next however many years I have. So I feel like that's stressful. That's like, I need to forgive the person before, the actions of the person before, because now it's a new chapter. Like, you need to continue moving forward and realize that you don't have to be defined by the decisions made prior to that. So
yeah. I mean, I feel like as well that, like you said, there's people who are still doing high school stuff, and then there's also people who are getting married and having kids. So the spectrum of what you could be doing right now is very broad. And there's people that are doing stuff even worse than just high school stuff, right?
yeah,
So the spectrum's broad. And I feel like a lot of times comparison's the thief of joy. So if you just enjoy where you're at and know that you're doing the right things and that every day you're compounding good things and good actions into what could be a successful career and what you want your life to be, I think that's all you need to do for today and for right now. And I don't know, do you feel like you get yourself, you catch yourself kind of getting caught up in that, caught up in like everything has to be done soon? Or have you, kind of taken a different?
I I know we talked about it earlier in the week, and like, sometimes I lose sight of like what my goals are, whether it be in my professional career, in my relationships, in my family, my goals in general. I get lost on the end game, the light at the end of the tunnel, and just don't enjoy the ride. Like, every day's a new day. You have to enjoy that day, because you're not going to get that day back. So
Yeah.
sometimes, like, you need to just reel yourself back in a little bit, get those intrusive thoughts out of your head. Just realize that you will get there, but you got to take the baby steps. You got to do something each day in order to build that bridge to wherever the hell you're going. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that I do get lost in it a little bit, but I've, thankfully, talking to you, talking to some friends, talking to my parents, like, we figured out what I need to do to make sure that I stay in that good center, clear vision, seeing straight. So I think everyone should reach out and have some sort of um, friend, somebody to talk to. Everyone should talk to somebody, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend, whether it's your family. Everyone deserves somebody to get whatever's on their chest off of it. And I'm glad that, I have a couple of those.
Yeah, definitely. A support system is huge whenever you're trying to navigate life or navigate any sort of, situation or problem that has been addressed to you. I feel like one thing that you do really well whenever I come to you with, a problem, issue, whatever it may be, is you kind of like let me figure it out on the phone. Like you're just like, okay, and what happened after that? And how did that make you feel? Okay, what's your next? You just ask the questions that just kind of allow me to figure it out myself. And then you're like, okay, Joseph, that's what you should do then
Mhm.
at the end of it. And not
Yeah.
saying that you don't give me advice, because you'll give me a perspective from your life and, a situation that goes on that has gone on with you that you think would be relevant to what's going on with me. But it's not just like, you should do this, have a good day, bye. It's kind of like a well thought, like you let me think it out. And I feel like for me, that really works. Maybe it doesn't work for some other people. Some other people may need to be told exactly what to do. But I feel like you do that really well. So is that certain type of communication? Is that something that is that just you growing up, or is it something you learned, or?
I think that's how I want other people to listen to me.
Hmm.
Like, I just need your ear. I don't necessarily need you to say anything. Like, honestly, um, in the past, amount of time, I've been dealing with some other stuff, just like mental, like overthinking and stuff like that. And like, I just needed an ear. I just
Yeah,
needed somebody to listen, not be on their phone, not tell me what to do, not play it off like it wasn't a big deal. I needed somebody to listen to me and ask me questions about what I was talking about and actively listen to me.
yeah,
And some people did, some people didn't. So I that's why I feel like when somebody's looking for my ear or like wants to talk to me, we have two ears and one mouth. Like close your mouth, just open your ears and open your mouth when you see fit. When there's pauses, try to think about everything that was said and then give a decent answer about how you're feeling about it. Don't just and you I saw you brought it up, or heard you brought it up. People who just give perspectives, like give their own, life perspectives. That's great in moderation. I don't need to hear about your entire life. I want you to listen about my problems or my issues that I need help with. You don't need to compare it to every single thing. Two comparisons, just so that me, you, anybody you're talking to, feels like somebody else has been through it. That's great.
yeah. Like you're not
That's a good
nuts.
thing.
You're not nuts
Yeah,
for feeling like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like,
It's
no,
great.
I understand you. I understand where you're coming from. I've been there before. And then you kind of you let me work it out, right? But you'll be like, okay, so here's just a little something, but we're going to continue on this path of letting you work it out. But I'm gonna just, kind of knock on the door and be like, hey, you're not nuts. We've
Yeah,
I've been there. Okay, all right, now
yeah,
let's continue.
yeah,
And I feel like that's very important for people, especially overthinkers, because sometimes I know when I overthink, I'll ramble, especially if I feel like the person that I'm talking to, A, isn't listening, or B, they don't understand where I'm coming from. So that little bit of reassurance is good, especially if someone's going through something, I feel.
yeah. No, reassurance is important. Um,
Yeah.
keeps you centered, keeps you reels you back in a little bit. But yeah, no, I think that forgiveness is important. I think forgiving other people is important. I think forgiving yourself is important. And I think that if more people did that, there'd be less mental health issues in this world. I think you just need to realize that we are all humans. We're babies growing up to raise babies, growing up to raise babies. Like we're all trying to figure out what is going on in this life and juggle going between I need to do this for myself because I deserve to come first versus I need to do this for somebody else because I want to put myself second because they deserve to be first. And like juggling, being able to bounce back and forth and realize when somebody's taking advantage of you or that you need to think about yourself first. Like it's stressful and it doesn't there's no handbook for any of this. So like when you realize that somebody did something wrong to you, you probably should just realize that they didn't, think of it. That maybe they were in, I need to do something for myself at that point, and that's why they chose to make that decision.
Yeah.
You know?
I've often heard the saying, don't mistake ignorance for maliciousness. And I feel sometimes, like me personally, I will get very upset when someone quote unquote like wrongs me, but it's really just like they were like, oh, I didn't even know like that upset you. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, and I feel like that's where communication becomes very key and very important. And I feel like having that conversation, especially with people in your life that you feel like you need to forgive, sometimes, forgiving them just internally is good for you. If you're just like, hey, you know what? I forgive them. That's okay. I forgive myself for my part in the situation. I forgive them for their part in the situation. But sometimes, especially when it's a very close connection, it requires that extra step, that extra conversation of, hey, like, were you being malicious, or did you just not even know that that was affecting me like this at all?
Mm.
And 9 times out of 10, it's the latter. But, hopefully the situation isn't the first one where it's just, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that, like, I don't think it
No.
is. I think it may be a confusion, if that makes sense. And yeah, how do you feel about what is the importance that you place on having those conversations, or do you just kind of like, nope, forgive them internally and move on?
I think in the past, I haven't always been able to have that conversation. I strayed away from having a conversation. I kind of just was like, I'm going to take it on the chin and be done
Yeah,
with it, because that conversation, if I did have it, I learned that it wasn't actually going to fix one, it wasn't going to fix anything. Two, it just started a fight. And three, it wasn't good for me. Like, I'd rather just, I don't want to talk about it, so I'm just not going to, because I didn't feel like anything would change. So, but now I feel like there's way more importance to it. I've recently, like, started something new, and communication has been excellent in that I better than I ever had before. Sometimes in the past I had to say little white lies, like just to keep the
mhm,
peace, because I know that I was making a choice based on what I wanted to do, and didn't necessarily think that what I was doing would involve, hurt, affect the other person, and they
yeah,
would make it about them. So then I would just tell not tell the whole truth. Let's put it that way. And I didn't like that about myself whatsoever. So I
yeah,
made a change. I
yeah,
forgave that self. I made a change, and I said that I was not going to be anything less than my authentic self. Like, you were going to get the full me, transparent.
yeah,
And my life has changed drastically since I've done that.
yeah.
So that's one thing.
Because you put faith in yourself to handle whatever series of events, conversations, and words follow exactly how you feel and the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you do those little white lies or the leaving stuff out, leaving how you feel out, you're basically saying to yourself subconsciously, my feelings don't matter. What I have to say does not matter. This person doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And what I have to say will upset them. Maybe they'll never talk to me again. And if they never talk to me again, my life will be in shambles, in ruins, and I'll be nothing. When in fact, as long as you have you and you have God, you're fine. As long as you set those boundaries, as long as you say exactly how you feel in the moment and you're calm and peaceful with it, I don't think there's anything wrong with voicing your opinion. In fact, I think it's actually necessary to voice how you feel and the boundaries that you want to set. And I feel like it's great that you have adopted that mindset.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think more people should do it. I think it's key to having a successful relationship, and it's such a simple thing to do. Like, stop being scared of what people are going to think about you. Just be you, because if they don't like you, then that's okay. Like, it'll
Yeah,
be somebody else that will come along and respect that you're at least being you. You know, it just makes for a stickier situation later on if you're not being authentic.
yeah, because you're gonna have to say it eventually anyway, or it's
Yep.
going to, affect you in a way that's negative, affect those relationships in a negative way. And I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson. I don't know. Are you aware, or do you know Jordan Peterson? Do you listen to any of his stuff?
He's an artist, isn't he?
No,
Like a
he's a personal psychologist.
okay.
So he's actually, like, how like a lot of psychologists study like either the brain or different forms of psychology. He studies the person and how a person does certain things. And he goes, in all my years of being a personal psychologist, I have never seen a person get away with anything ever. Meaning, even if you like tell those lies, oh, like it'll be fine. No, because it's gonna come back later. Like you're not gonna get away with those little white lies with those things. You're asked a question and you falsely, answer. It's gonna bug you until you finally go, yeah, actually, I lied about that. Or
Yeah.
even at the gym the other day, I was shopping with my mom, right? Not at the gym, but previously I was shopping with my mom, and she had bought me these shorts, and I had a pair of shorts on at the gym. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, dude, like I like your shorts." I was like, "Thanks," and I was like joking with him, and then he's like, I was like, "Dude, I didn't even know how much these were." He's like, "Oh, but you swiped the card anyway," and I was like, "Yeah, I did." Like I walked away, and then I was like, I came back, I was like, "Dude, I know this has no impact on you whatsoever, but my mom bought these shorts. I didn't buy these shorts. I didn't swipe the card. My mom did. And even though it was just like something so small, I like had to go back and like tell him, dude, I didn't buy these shorts. Like, I couldn't even like process the fact that like it was bugging me. I was doing sets and I was like, you need to go talk to that dude. You can't leave this gym until you go tell him your mom bought these shorts for you. Like, so it's just you'll never get away with those little white lies. So I'm really glad that you changed that, that perspective about it, because you're worth your opinion, man. You're worth everything you have to say.
Yeah. I That's a good point. I've never heard of that before. I didn't hear him say that, but you're not wrong. I I don't think there's a single time where I had spoken something that wasn't fully true and I didn't think about it days, hours, weeks, months later. Like when I did that, I shouldn't have done that. It's not the person I want to be, you know?
Even if it'll like pop up too, like you'll forget about it for a little bit, and be like, hey, by the way, you didn't do that correctly, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, and then you're like, I won't address that, and then it's like procrastination is takes away from growth. It does. Whether it's little things, whether it's big things, whether it's big conversations, admitting certain things to certain people, I think it has a huge impact on your whole development and who you are as a person as a whole. And I think even when you want to hold certain things in, forgiveness of yourself plays a big role in being able to admit those wrongdoings that you did, especially if you lied to someone about something. You forgive yourself and you're like, hey, I'm not the person I was anymore. So let me not be the person I was anymore. Let me go and tell this person, hey, like, I'm sorry. Like, I lied about this and that and that and this. And sometimes we can even, we don't want to be like, oh, well, maybe if I see him, I'll tell him. Sometimes going out of your way is very beneficial to you because then you feel good about it. You know, not forgiving someone and not forgiving yourself, it just hurts you. And that's it. And sometimes you have to go, if it's hurting you enough, you're going to have to go really out of your way. You may even have to drive a distance to be like, hey, like, I'm sorry, like I messed up. Not like I messed up like if it's, a past romantic relationship, like, oh, I want you back, but like, just like, hey, like I lied to you about like these things. I just needed to tell you. That's all.
Some things are better said in person too. So
Yeah.
I see what you're saying about distance.
Yeah. You
I feel
can't like
like,
text someone something major.
yeah, yeah. Thank God for FaceTime now.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have had some hard conversations on FaceTime in the last year,
Mm.
and I don't think I could have had those if I didn't have that, because texting just didn't do it service. There's so many ways to interpret a text, and that's why I don't love it. I like if I'm texting a couple of my friends, specifically like you, I typically will call. I don't really text you, and my friend Mike, we don't text. Like he just FaceTimes me whenever he wants. Like if he's gonna text me, it's like something small. It's probably a meme or something. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, let's get back on forgiveness and what else it means.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like just to your point though, like texting is like a communication to achieve a goal, right? Like when we were getting on this podcast, I was like, hey, did you get the email? You're like, yeah, I got the email. Like that didn't really require a phone call, but to have a full on conversation, a phone call, right? A
Yeah,
FaceTime, things like that. Um, but yeah, just to complete your point, I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, forgiveness.
yeah. Um, I think as of late, one thing that we haven't talked about is um, when people feel wronged. At least when I feel wronged, I've always been a competitive person, so I
Mm.
feel like I need to win in one way or another. I need to feel better about it, so I
Yeah,
need to feel like I got the better hand in
yeah,
general. Like that makes me feel better. I've noticed that, which I don't really love because it's not necessary in all instances, but um sometimes I'll be petty. I don't have a problem being petty sometimes. And I don't
um,
like that about myself because, like there's really you wouldn't want it done to you, so why are you doing something back to get back at them? And I
yeah,
bring this up because getting ready for this podcast, there's a quote by Pope John Paul II, and it says, "Forgiveness is above all a personal choice, a decision of the heart to go against natural instinct to pay back evil with evil." And I feel like that's what I was doing, or at least within the last year, some multiple like things have happened in general. Some good, some bad, some real
yes,
bad,
yes,
and I always felt like I needed to make it right, not by just forgiving the person, but by trying to do something to scutch them, to annoy them, to like get under their skin because they clearly got under my skin, and I don't like that. I don't think it's not constructive. It doesn't help you in any way. It just makes you a little bit more cynical to the whole situation.
yeah. I
So
feel like it's. I don't think that you do anything directly, though. I feel like you're just like, I'm gonna let karma handle you, and then, but when karma handles them, you're like, see, I told you
yeah,
karma was gonna handle you.
yeah,
Like it's it's that little like see, rather than just
yeah.
letting karma take its course and do its thing. Kind of have that little bit like, yeah,
Mhm.
I know, I knew, I told you.
Karma is a weird thing because I've definitely seen it firsthand, and like
Yeah,
I believe in it for sure. I feel like there's just this weird energy in the world that like when you bring positivity, you get positivity back, and when you bring negativity, negativity finds you. It's interesting.
absolutely. And even when it comes to like order too, right? Like if you say you're running a household and discipline has to happen, discipline has to occur. I totally understand that. But if you're like, hey, like we're not gonna do that, here's what we're gonna do instead, rather than, screaming, yelling, traumatizing a kid. There's two different ways to go about it. And I feel like especially if you know what you're doing is right and you bring it in a positive light, um, I feel like that there's no problem with that. And I feel like the positivity in this world is it definitely comes back to your point. Um, I I love that perspective, and I know some of the situations that have been going on, around you and around your life, have definitely been funny. Not funny like comedy,
Not
hilarious,
funny,
but
haha.
it's been like, wow, like that's crazy because ABC is crazy because X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
It's a interesting time. It's
the
been, but yeah, just gotta forgive yourself for doing something wrong, and forgive the other person because they're just a human. It is
yeah,
what it is at this point. You gotta just trust that you'll find your way. And at the end of the day, one thing that I it's something that I hate, but I also love is at the end of the day, you only have yourself, so make sure you're kind to yourself.
yeah,
I usually add the kind to yourself part because if more people were kind in this world, we wouldn't have so much hate. We wouldn't have so much, disparity and depression and all this other stuff. If you just led with kindness, you had a communication with kindness. And I'm not saying that I do that all the time because I definitely can blow a fuse a little bit.
yeah,
And sometimes I need to just take a step back and realize this could have absolutely gone way better if I just did it this way and maybe learn from that mistake. Lead with kindness, lead with truth, transparency, and the person on the other end is going to respect it. And if they don't, then maybe that's something that you shouldn't have in your life, someone that you shouldn't have in your life.
yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of times that real anger and not just communication, but that real like upsetness with someone else and not kindness with someone else, it does stem from our inability to handle whatever situations in front of us, right? Like if you now it could be that, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're not met, right? Like I know whenever I come home from the gym, um, Haley will like want to talk to me about a lot of stuff. I'm like, hold on, like let me just make a protein shake. Like let me make something because I want to be able to listen to you. And if I'm just standing here talking, like I know what I need in order to be able to sit down and be like, okay, like now like let's talk. Like, hi, how are you? But let me grab a protein bar. Let me eat something and get something in my system. I just worked out for 2.5 hours. Like I need to kind of recuperate for a second, and then I got you. Um, I feel like, but sometimes to revert back, I feel like sometimes kindness. Oh no, I lost it. I
I'll
feel
jump
like,
on that. I'll jump
yeah,
on that. Try to think
yeah,
of what you're saying. So like, sometimes kindness can be mistaken for weakness too,
yeah,
and I feel like that's what I struggle with a little bit because I
yeah,
feel like I'm somebody that is genuinely kind. Like I
yeah,
not all the time, obviously. Like with my friends, if they can dish it to me, I'm gonna dish it back, and you better
yeah,
be able to take it.
yeah,
But I think with my patients, people in the community, like you walk somebody on past somebody on the street, you can either keep your head down and act like you're not seeing them, or you can say, "Hey, how you doing? How's your day going?" Like
yes,
it's just the little things that and I'll use the same example. You're walking past somebody on the street, you don't know what's going on in their life, just like they don't know what's going on in yours. You get a nasty sales assistant, a nasty salesman, or at a car dealership, or somebody working behind the counter somewhere that's giving you attitude. You have no idea what their life is. You have no idea what happened that day.
no. I
And
also heard,
yeah,
but
no, continue, go for it.
I also heard that like whenever someone's being like that toward you, and whenever they start getting like really, really angry, like if you just go, "Are you okay?" Like it completely like it's something with like your psyche or it like completely rearranges like how they rather than like fighting fire with fire. If you like throw like that little bit of water or like just like caring about that person, like, "Are you okay?" It kind of like makes them take a whole step back. And I feel like that's where caring about someone kind of comes into play, where even if it's someone that you don't know, if they're treating you poorly and you just kind of give them that courtesy of caring about them, caring about their feelings, and caring about how they are, it can change how their whole day goes. It can change how your whole day goes. Especially speaking to your point of, just saying hi to people. Last night, I'm sorry, not last night, the night before, I was walking my dog outside and I just said, like, have a good night to this one guy. And he turned around and he was like, hi, like, what's your name? And I was like, oh, my name's Joe. He told me his name. We're chatting for a little bit. And he goes, I just want to tell you, I don't know if you recognize me, but I've lost 70 pounds and I walk like up and down Kutztown. And there was a time where you put your hand out and like gave me a high five while you were running. And I thought that was really, really cool. I didn't even recognize the dude because he'd lost so much weight. But like, I would have, had I never been like, hey, like, how was your night? He probably would have never said anything to me. And it kind of just like reaffirmed my like that God was still with me. Like it reaffirmed that, like, dude, like, keep doing what you're doing. Keep saying hi to people. Keep talking to people. Keep being kind to people. Like you're doing a good thing. And I know that sometimes we don't always have to be like reaffirmed with like we're doing a good thing. But sometimes, even with like my working out, like I feel like sometimes it's selfish. You know what I mean? Like, why are you spending so much time? Like you have family members, you have people around you. Why are you spending so much time in the gym? Like that thought will come into my head sometimes, but then, I just counteract it with, well, your parents started getting healthier. They started working out more. Other people in your life have started to do better things, make better choices. Had you not done that, maybe none of them would have ever even considered doing good things. So it kind of just, again, to go back on your point, just saying hi to people. I have recently started doing that. Before I would not do that. And it just kind of reaffirmed that I should keep doing that.
Absolutely. That's important. I think that's a good, I've never thought about it either, but because I definitely don't like disrespect. Like I will treat you the same way that you're going to treat me.
Yeah.
So you treat me with respect, I have no problem respecting you, and I'm gonna lead with respect. Like I always, you get the benefit of the doubt in the beginning.
Yeah.
But when you feel like you're getting disrespected, like when somebody's clearly having a bad day or something's wrong, and leading with "Are you okay?" That's something that I probably have never done in my life, other than with my friends. But it's definitely powerful. Like it's probably what they needed. You know what I mean? Like you might have just made their day and you didn't even know.
Yeah.
You just needed somebody to ask them that.
Yeah. Because maybe they're not even asking themselves that. Maybe they're not even, like, did you eat today? Like, I'll often, like, I kind of in a petty way, but like, if, like, someone in my life is acting like that, I'll be like, you need to eat, or you need to take a nap, or you need to, like, you need to address your other needs. Because
Yeah, you're hangry.
obviously you're not good right now. So you need to fix that. You need to check that, because I'm not a fan of how you're acting. I don't know what's going on, but something got to change. And then 9 times out of
For
10,
sure.
they get something to eat or get a drink of water or take a nap. And then they're like, oh, hey, what's up? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're not yourself. You're not yourself when you're hangry.
Yeah.
Eat a Snickers. Yeah.
That was not a promotional ad. We are not paid by Snickers. We're not promoting candy on this podcast.
Sorry.
Oh, dude, that's they really got people thinking about that. Like, oh, you're hungry. Let's have a chocolate bar. That'll
Yeah.
do it for you.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
true though. You're not yourself when you're hungry. I definitely this week I definitely lacked on the eating and I was
yeah,
not myself for a little bit. So,
yeah.
but I'm good now. So,
My life
eat
revolves
plenty of food.
around my diet and
Yeah.
yeah, all that. But just to go back on your point about, like, you saying like you're not like you're not kind to your friends, but like whenever they dish it out, I feel like that, like if they dish it out, you can dish it out as well. I feel like that is kindness, bro. I feel like that is a form of like, okay, like we can do this like little this back and forth. I feel like if you don't, you're not close to those people kind of. Like I feel like if you have to put on that like non-joking mask, it's not really the same.
I agree. It's
Yeah.
you can't be yourself at that point because we all like I don't know. Some people are very serious and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not a serious person all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Like I like to joke around, I like to have a good time. I like to make other people laugh. I like to laugh myself. So definitely a way that I judge a person is if they one give me some shit, you know,
Yeah.
like the banter back and forth, like and be able to take it. Because if you
Yeah.
can't take it, then I don't respect you giving it out, and I'm not going to be able to take it if you can't, like trust that. Don't get me wrong, like there's a level to it. Like if he's at a 4, like you got to be at a 4, or she's at a 4, you got to be at a 4. She's at a 10, you probably shouldn't be at a 10, but you know
Yeah.
it goes both ways. Like you can't just you can't go 0 to 100 all the time, which I have done, and I
Yeah.
also regret. But I forgive myself for that because
Yeah.
I'm working on it. So
Yeah. Working on maintaining that balance and maintaining
yes,
that level
yes,
of yeah. I feel like to know the person, like just for an example, like a yo mama joke, right? It's a very like immature example, right? But to someone whose mom you're very close with, a yo mama joke is probably funny. But if you don't know the person that well and you go, yo mama, and he goes, my mother's not
yeah,
here. Like you need to at least know the person well enough to joke with them. And that kind of speaks back to it is kind to joke with people because it means, hey man, like I know you enough that I know what level I can be on when I'm joking with you, um, to an extent. Because if you don't know someone, like you're not gonna walk up to someone you don't know and start maybe joking with them about like the atmosphere, like talking to someone like, hey man, like this wait's insane. Like what are they doing back there? Like that's different than like walking up to someone and joke like busting on them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's that's a great point too, to forgive yourself for that, because I feel like in the past when I've joked with people and they've been offended by it and they've been hurt by it, I then designated myself as a bully. Whereas I now forgive myself because I'm like, dude, maybe in some of those instances you're being a little extreme, but you just, at the end of the day, you just wanted someone to laugh. Like you didn't want them to get super upset. Like that wasn't your goal. Maybe that's what occurred, but that wasn't what you were trying to do. And I feel like for a while I held that. And I feel like that was a big part of, like my weight gain, was thinking that I wronged all these people and that every one of my past that I ever talked to, like they wouldn't talk to me. I know for a while, when we both went to Kings and I was like staying on your couch, hanging out with you all the time because I felt like it was like mad cool. Like my cousin's here, like he's cool. Like he lets me stay on his couch. I hang out with him and his friends all the time. But then like when I left, like I held on for a while that like, not that you ever said anything, like you never made me feel like this. But I was like, damn, like I hope he doesn't think I was using him so I could like stay on his couch and hang out with him. Like dude, like it's crazy.
Mikasa, Sukasa.
Yeah, obviously. But even then, I was like, I didn't pay any bills ever. Like, I just chilled there all the time. I mean, I would like buy you guys food and stuff like that, but like,
No,
I,
you weren't a mooch.
no,
You don't have to, you can forgive yourself for that. I never thought that thought thought of
I
you
know.
like that.
But
I enjoyed your company, Joseph.
I appreciate that.
I didn't mind coming home from lacrosse practice or a game and you being on my couch. Never really cared. Was happy
Yeah,
to see you. So it's fine.
I know. I remember I called you though, and I was like, dude, like, I'm sorry. You're like, what are you talking
It's fine.
about?
If anything, you were protecting the house. I don't know if we even locked the door, to be honest, in good old Wilkes-Barre.
He said, looking
Made
back,
sure my TV didn't get stolen because you were too busy watching YouTube videos, listening to the same Mac Miller songs over and over again.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That was a big part of my 19-year-old self, 19 and 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad I went through that because I now appreciate the level of competency that I have when it comes to my health, when it comes to my studies, when it comes to, I know that like I don't have complete control of my life, but I have somewhat control and I can control the things that I can control. And it brings me, I don't feel like I ever really regret that time in my life because it's made me so grateful for the life I live now. And it makes sure, like, it's like we had to get you down there so far to make sure that you never went back down there. Like, we couldn't have you just dip a little bit. Like, you had to, like, go the whole way down so that way you come up here and you stay up here because who, the life I was living, the weight that I was at, what I was doing on a daily basis, the food I was eating, the way my stomach felt, I was just, for lack of a better term or phrase, just a ball of molecules floating aimlessly through this world. Like I had no direction, no self-direction, no purpose. Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm very purposeful in everything that I do. And it's not to say that that time wasn't a good time. That I didn't have fun. I definitely did. But I have a lot more fun achieving things and doing good than I did just doing whatever I wanted.
Yeah. I could say that to your fitness journey has been inspiring, and I'm sure it's inspiring plenty of other people. But what I'm about to say is for the people that it's not a fitness journey. It's like specific to ex relationships and stuff like that. Like no matter how bad it ended up,
Yeah.
it's gonna like I think we when we had the conversation, you used the bow example, like how hard it is to pull the bow all the way back. It's just gonna launch you into something good, and
Yeah.
you may not even be expecting that, but it will. You're gonna learn from whatever bad experience you had to go through, however you were feeling, whatever dark hole you got yourself stuck in, you will get yourself out if you want to. Life's got a funny way of launching you into something good. And that's how I view my life right now, that I have way more appreciation for my relationships now than I did for my past ones. Because they definitely gave me experiences and they definitely have hurt me in new ones, in terms of like I still need to forgive myself for back there. I need to forgive them and
Yeah.
move on from that. Learn, don't forget, but move on and realize that it's not going to define me now. Realize what you have in front of you and that it's different than in the past, and make sure that it's different in the past and that you learn from what you had to go through. So if whoever's watching this, if you get anything out of it, just know that good time, for every bad time, there will be 2 more, 3 more good ones. Just get through the bad one.
Yeah. And when you get through that bad experience, I feel like when we're younger, we're like this big ball of energy with relationships and we bounce around. Not like bounce around like romantic relationships, but just relationships in general. You bounce around
Yeah.
and then it gets to a point where like you're like, okay, I'm actually gonna stay in this. I'm gonna stay in this. And your boundaries get smaller and smaller. Well,
Mhm.
your boundaries get bigger, but what you allow gets smaller and smaller. You don't allow certain things. And I feel like that those experiences try to kind of force your hand when it comes to certain boundaries that you set because you've been out in those territories where it's, you know, high risk, high reward, for lack of a better term. And that high risk, high reward mentality can lead to your boundaries getting pushed and you going, okay, I'm going to set my boundaries in a little more, a little more, a little more. And you start to rely on yourself more because when you don't have all these people to talk to and to have conversations with and occupy your time, more time is made for you, and you get to self-develop yourself a little bit better. And I feel like that is one of the main important aspects of having those relationships. And then even if they taper off, break off, you set boundaries where you're like, I'm never going to allow that kind of energy or relationship to occur again.
I'm just going to jump on that. You have your bad experiences make your non-negotiables in
Yeah.
any relationship, romantic or friends or family. Like
Mhm.
you have a certain amount of boxes. I've been using the term boxes. Like I need my boxes checked. In order to move on, I need you to hit these 10 things because these are my non-negotiables. These what I want in a friend, a lover, a family member, any of that stuff. Like you need a coworker, like you need to fulfill these things for me to give you my time and my energy.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is actually exactly spot on. Like the more like in college, in high school, like you don't know what you want. You have no idea what you want.
Yeah.
And I fully believe that. Like your experiences shape you. They make your high risk, high reward. You have this big boundary right now because you could like something all the way on the top right, but really you're all the way on the top left. You have no idea. And it slowly gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you find your non-negotiables, and that's your boundaries. These are your things that you need in your life to make sure that you stay straight, you stay mentally fit, and you know, I experiences shape us. Like there's no doubt in my mind that we can shape somebody else, maybe change their day, just like they can change ours by the way that they respond or act in a certain situation. So
Yeah.
that's something that's definitely been in my head and something that I've been thinking about lately. And I hope you are too, because it's important. I hope everyone is that, you need to have boundaries in your life.
Yeah. And especially speaking to your mental fitness that you just mentioned, you said you mentally fit. Um, I heard a quote sentence, someone was saying that when they see that you're physically fit, when someone sees that you're physically fit, it means that you have boundaries. It means that you said, no, I will not eat cake all the time every day. No, I will not lay around and watch TV all day. No, I have a certain set of boundaries that I allow. And those boundaries are, maybe I have keto friendly ice cream at night, or whatever it may be, right? Like I have a certain set of diets that I do. I eat certain things, I work out a certain amount of time, and I schedule those. I have those boundaries. I schedule that stuff out. And being mentally fit means I only allow this sort of mental headspace to come into my realm. I don't allow for nonsense and things that aren't aligned with my path and aligned with what I want to achieve. And same thing with emotional. You don't want to be around, people who are sporadic with their emotions all the time, because you want to be level headed and you want to be able to make clear and concise decisions. And I feel like all of those things align, and not a lot of people really notice that or care about that. Like they think, oh well, it's fine if I don't go to the gym, my mental fitness is gonna, like, I'll be fine mentally. I don't think so. I'm a big advocate for the opposite. I'm an advocate for when you finally set those boundaries of, I'm gonna go to the gym. I don't care how much it is. Like I go for a while. That's because I'm a big fitness guy. I love that. But I don't care what it is, as long as you set that boundary and that parameter for yourself. Like, hey, I'm gonna walk a mile and a half a day. If you walk a mile and a half a day, that's 30 minutes on the treadmill. All you're doing is walking. That's all you gotta do. You gotta do something. You have to pick yourself up. You gotta do something to progress yourself forward and to set that physical boundary. Because when you set that physical boundary, it sets up the framework for the mental and emotional boundary as well. And I feel like even with your job, being a physical therapist, like some people don't set those boundaries mentally and emotionally, and it ends up harming them physically. Have you noticed that? Is that something that you've noticed?
All the time. I mean, I work with a wide variety of people. I work in an
Yeah.
outpatient hospital setting, but I also work in cardiac and pulmonary rehab. I do vestibular, so a lot of concussions and people who literally can't get up in the morning. Sometimes they're dizzy all day long. They're depressed. like it changes their entire life. One car accident, whether it was their problem or not, changed their whole life. People who had strokes, young. I've had a 45-year-old that had a stroke and changed her entire life. Um, and like cardiac and pulmonary, they're typically older individuals. I've had younger ones with, uh, genetic predisposition to, other stuff, had heart defects like as kids and stuff like that. So these people, either specifically cardiac and pulmonary, like those people are a specific way, and they either, like, you could tell which one's which and how it affects their life. The fact that they have to take 8 medications affects their life. Their day-to-day, their boundary is now that in the morning, I have to make sure that I get up at the same time every day to take my medication. Just like pulmonary, I have to carry around a box that allows me to breathe. Like it affects the way that they actually think. It affects the way that they go about doing their stuff. So on a daily basis, I see people that need help. And I truly believe that I'm doing, God's work. Like I'm doing the work of a therapist, a bartender, a PT, and a friend all at the same time. I do think that, like, I'm constantly talking to people. I have to listen to their stories every single day, whether it's the same story they told me last time because they have dementia, or it's a new story or developing from the last time that I saw them. Because as much as the one thing that's nice about PT is that I get to see them for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. Yeah. Sometimes even longer than that. So like I build that rapport with these people, which is what I wanted throughout my career. Like it's nice to have the MD at the end of your name. It's nice to go through medical school. Not that I ever thought that, I would make it that far, but they don't get the time that I get with my patients. I truly value the fact that I get to, I know about their lives because they tell me about it, whether it's good, bad. I know that, my one patient her son just got married and she was ecstatic. Like I like stuff like that. So it's not all bad, but it affects their lives. Like just seeing it through a time in their, like I'm helping them through a time in their life where they may not exercise ever. They may not be somebody who likes to exercise, and now they have to because they're in pain. So it's a big life change all the time.
Yeah, I feel like kind of like a funny example is Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, where I forget his grandpa's name.
But I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah, he's laying in bed. He's bedridden.
Willy? No, Willy.
No,
obviously Willy Wonka's Willy.
But he's bedridden, right? But the moment that he gets ecstatic and excited and he's ready to go to the Chocolate Factory, he jumps out of bed. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's somewhat purpose driven, right? Like if you're excited to wake up in the morning and you're excited to take on the day, and your perspective on life is like that, you're emotional, your physical and mental will also follow that. And I feel like, like how was your patient when her son got married? Like when she was ecstatic, was she better?
Her pain was lower, for sure. It's weird. The people who come in and tell me the same number every time and then tell me the same number after, not because, it's a subjective report. So it's literally, just how you're feeling that day.
Yeah.
It was definitely, a better time. She had a smile on her face when she came in, and she definitely was feeling better. So if people just could rewire their brain and realize that that's what it is. So that's what pain is. It's just our brain telling us that we're in pain, not that we're actually in pain for one reason or another. Obviously pain is true. It's protective in nature, but if you want it to get lower, you have to change your mindset. That's super important. So
and I feel like
before you continue, I just wanted to let you know it's a coincidence that the grandfather's name was Joe. It's Grandpa Joe.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's
there you go.
I thought that, but I didn't want to be like self-centered and just
Grandpa Joe
and being wrong. But yeah, I feel like a lot of times people don't understand that, like your back, like your body doesn't hurt from a lack of medicine, right? I forget where I heard this, but I know medicine helps, right? I'm not knocking that, especially people that have life, like their entire life, they've had a certain disease or a certain thing that hasn't helped or work, or hasn't worked properly.
Mhm.
I understand that may be the case for a lot of people. I understand sicknesses happen, but for certain things, like you don't have a headache because of lack of ibuprofen, right? Like you have a headache
Mhm.
because you haven't eaten, you haven't gotten the proper amount of sleep, you haven't had the right amount of water, and if it's anything more than that, I don't think ibuprofen is going to help you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I feel like that's something that not a lot of people take into consideration when thinking about their health. And it's something that I've taken into consideration a little bit more when it comes to my health. I used to just pop ibuprofen before football practice, like, all the time.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't drink enough water. I wouldn't eat the proper food, but I was down to take ibuprofen because ibuprofen made me not feel anything after or before football practice.
Mhm.
So, I feel like that's definitely a different perspective that's changed. And I feel like physical therapy really plays a positive role in being like, hey, like you could just do these exercises, do these stretches. Um, I've had my knee scraped before with those metal scrapers where they get all the knots out. I feel like that's a great method when it comes to healing people. Rolling out is great. Um,
Physical touch is a weird thing.
yeah.
Some people just need someone to touch them. They're not getting it at home, and they feel a
Wow.
lot better once somebody actually puts their hands on them. It's weird.
Wow.
Very healing. But that's what I got into this business for, because I didn't necessarily think that medicine is the number one answer to anything. I think
Yeah.
that it is absolutely important, 100%. Certain people need it, and it keeps them alive, but it's not the answer for everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Having the perspective of, I understand that there are some that are very important is good, but I feel like there's not a majority, but there's a lot of situations and circumstances where proper food, proper nutrition, diet, all that, and exercise can really replace a lot of medicines that are being taken. And
I have to agree.
yeah, and just practices too, like breathing, like
Hmm.
meditation, breathing exercises, cold plunge, cold showers, sauna, things like that. I feel like that plays a big role in maintaining health, and I feel like that should be a first step before going straight to medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
just
right.
my personal opinion, though. I could be, you know, could be wrong.
You're entitled to your opinion. But let's get back on track. Let's get back to forgiveness. We
Yeah,
could is there anything else that that I haven't touched upon that you think that you'd like to touch upon?
I would like for you to touch upon a little bit more your personal, like the personal weight that you carried in these situations and how you developed forgiving yourself.
Um I truly believe that you can only control, like, you can't control everything. Like,
Yeah,
focus on what you can control. You can't control the decisions of others, right? So you need to realize that if you can't control it, then it's really not something that you need to spend more than you can't fixate on something that you can't control. You need to let it go. You need to do what you got to do. However, in a personal sense, like, if you've made mistakes in the past, you can't move on and be okay with not trying to right your wrongs, but move on with that person until you forgive yourself.
mm,
Because if you're constantly thinking about the wrongs that you did, it's going to affect the way that you are around them. You can't be yourself until you forgive yourself. So that's why it's important to just you need to leave it in the past. Have a conversation with about it. If it's really bothering you that much, just have a real like sit down and have a real conversation with the person, and and hopefully they respect you. Hopefully they respect your honesty and that you need to you want to move on so that you can be better for them, right?
yeah,
Um, so it's really it's the key to to leaving anything in the past and moving on from it, trying
Yeah.
to be a better person, learn from it.
Yeah. I really enjoy that that's your outlook. I appreciate that perspective because I feel like a lot of times we think that the person's going to judge us, at least I do, or that even when you first like say those things, like I in the past I used to say my feelings and then immediately be like judge myself immediately. Like, why would you even say that? Like why are you saying these things like that? Like that's not true, or that's ridiculous. And I feel like just having that forgiveness with yourself stop blocks that thought, because you'll say something and the person will be ready to respond. When it comes to having that conversation, and you're like already mad at yourself, and you'll in turn like start going back and forth with them in a volatile manner. That's not good. It's not good at all. Um, so forgiving yourself before having the conversation, I feel like, is definitely important.
Yeah, if you can manage it. If you
Yeah,
need somebody else validation that it's okay that you're going to leave that behind, then that's important too. And hopefully you pick somebody, if you're it's one thing if you have to have that conversation, that it's somebody that's important to you in your life. Otherwise, you can just move on and never talk to them again and just forgive yourself. But if
yeah,
it's somebody that you want to keep around, like it's most likely going to have a conversation so that they know, and that you maybe not that they know, but it's more for you, and that's okay, right? You're thinking about yourself, but at the same time, you're thinking about them because you want to move on in a positive manner and not have to continue thinking about whatever you did.
yeah. I feel like selfishness too plays in positively. Now let me elaborate a little bit. So
Mm.
I feel like whenever you're selfish and you say what you want to say and you focus on being the best version of yourself, I feel like other people around you benefit from that. And while it may seem selfish in the moment a lot of the times, I feel like you set a certain example for people, just like with you, right? Like you went and you got your doctorate. Before that, I hadn't even considered getting my doctorate. But after I saw you go and get your doctorate, I was like, maybe I can go get my doctorate. But had you not gone through those 3 years of medical school, and rather than doing that, you just go, oh, I got my master's. Oh, now I can hang out with Joe. I can hang out with my friends whenever I want to. Like, oh, we can bond and we could, I can call Joe. We could play video games, like all that stuff. Like, while we probably would have been closer, not closer, but like bonding, talking wise, I
They
guess
had
you
more
could say
time together.
more
That was
time together. Yeah. But rather than that, you said no, and you took 3 years of deep personal work, and you came out with a MD, correct? Or was it a
no
PhD or
deep.
an MD?
It's a DPT.
DPT. Okay. I appreciate you clarifying because I'm not really
It's
aware of
okay.
that. Yeah.
That's okay.
But you came out with that, and now everyone that is around you, everyone that is in your circle, talks to you, is your friend, family, whatever they may be, they go, well, Brian can do it. So if Brian has done it, then we can all do it as well. We just need to focus on doing that if that's something that we really want to do. So even though some people may be like, oh man, like, you're not gonna hang out with us this weekend, like like just like kind of how I was, like, oh, you're not gonna hang out with me? You're gonna study? Oh, all right, whatever, But you set that example. But hey, look, if you do study and you do say no and you do focus on yourself, you could become a doctor. So there's two sides of that coin. And you definitely chose the right side, I will say, when it comes to impacting
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, even with you. I mean, I know I had the conversation with you, especially after the first episode. When I listened to it, I was like, you know, I let Joe come to my house every night. I
Yeah.
didn't say shit to him all the time. You know, like sometimes I did say stuff like, you probably should go and do your homework. Like you probably should bring that stuff here and do that.
Yeah.
You probably should study for this exam. But I could have been more stern with it, and I
Yeah.
forgave myself
Mm.
for not making sure that my cousin was doing what he needed to do, and eventually needed to, like, you needed to separate yourself from the situation that you were in, which is what you did.
Yeah.
Whether it was from the help of your family or your own personal choice, that's what you did, and you came out 180-degree turn, different person, like in a good way. Your morals, your mind, your personality, the person that who you are is still there,
Yeah.
but your goals, like you actually have goals now. Like you actually you have self-love too. I think you were going through a point where you just like you didn't like the person that you were looking at in the mirror.
Yeah.
Whether that was strictly looks or whatever it was, or the fact that you didn't necessarily have goals, like you didn't like that person, and then you did something about it. That was a huge step. Just doing something, being like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, that's another thing that like definitely I look back on and I'm like, I could have did more to help Joe, but he did it himself, which
You could.
actually is
Yeah.
way better than me trying to help him. Like the fact that he was able to turn his life around himself made me be able to forgive myself for not doing that. So
Yeah. And you can't. I don't want you to take that on, and I hope you don't. And it sounds
I
like
don't.
you don't.
It's
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
have to. You
Yeah.
did it for me. You were the reason I could forgive myself. You were the reason that I can move on from that.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like even that conversation though, where you're like, "Hey, like, dude, I didn't even think anything of it of you like living like with us. Like, you're good." I feel like even that even though you didn't forgive me because you were never upset, I felt like you forgave me. So I felt like I could go and I'm fine now. Like he actually like wanted me around. I know it sounds kind of like
You're just in your own head, just like
yeah,
all of us are.
yeah,
Although I also read somewhere that like 40 something percent of the population in the world doesn't actually have an inner voice, which I think is weird.
uh,
It's crazy that you can go through life and not have that little person telling you like, "Is this a good idea?
yeah,
Should I actually do that?"
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
weird.
Yeah. I don't I can't even grasp that. Like if
Yeah.
that like I can't even understand how someone would do that. How someone could navigate life like that without having that decision making process in their own head. But
I feel like they overthink a lot less though. You
yeah,
know, like they just do what they want to do, and that's probably part of the reason that people who actually have an inner voice like get mad. It's like,
yeah.
what made you think that was a good idea? Like no one was telling you that your conscience wasn't like, yo, this is not what you should be doing.
You ever think
But
that's like how we were when we were kids? Like when your parents like, what made you do that? Like what thought process did you go through? And you're just like, I just did it.
yeah,
Like you're kind of like stuck in child mode a little bit. Like you're like, I don't know. I just grabbed the cookie out the cookie jar. I didn't think that it was going to be a bad thing. I just
mm-hmm.
saw something and I took it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So Steiger, do you have any other quotes you share, or did you share them both already throughout the
I only
podcast?
shared one of them. I'm gonna end with the
Yeah,
other one. So whenever
yeah,
you feel like we're ready,
yeah.
I'll share the last
I
one.
think we're ready right now. We've gone through a various amount of topics and conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
yes.
it was a good conversation. I think that um, forgiveness. Some people think that it's weakness. I think
Yeah,
that like you being able to let somebody wrong you is weak, and I think that's the opposite. I think
yeah,
that it's actually stronger, or you're a stronger person mentally, physically, emotionally if you're able to let go of somebody who wronged you. Because at the end of the day, you're probably going to wrong somebody too, and you're going to want them to forgive you. So why wouldn't you want to give the same respect to them? Now,
oh,
obviously, don't forget, and there's a certain, you have boundaries of where your forgiveness stops and ends. Starts and ends. But Gandhi said, I was looking up quotes, and this one stuck with me. And why not Gandhi? So
yeah,
he said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." And I agree with that. Like, it takes a lot more courage to say it's okay, I forgive you, and let's move on from this, than to be petty and to yell at somebody and to get mad at them for stuff that, probably isn't a big deal to them, but it's a big deal to you. And hopefully they won't do it again to you. Hopefully they'll learn their lesson. Hopefully if you have a real conversation with them, it won't be a problem. I think communication is key.
Yeah. And I feel like forgiveness of yourself too. When you have that forgiveness of yourself, you're cool with setting those boundaries because you love yourself. And you're like, I forgive myself for all these bad things that I did. And I love myself enough to set these boundaries and to communicate to you fully that I don't like that. And that's not going to happen around me. And then you don't get mad or upset because you have set those boundaries. You've communicated those boundaries. And I feel like that's what strong is. Like, these are my boundaries. I'm sticking to these boundaries. I'm not letting you break my boundaries down because I love myself and I forgive myself for everything that I've done wrong. I don't believe that anything that would break my boundaries is better than me, because this is me. And I believe that I shouldn't allow bad things within my boundaries. And that's being strong. Being weak is, okay, like I'm not, go ahead. That's okay. That's fine. That's fine. And then you kind of like get like antsy because your boundaries are being broken.
Just you allow stuff to happen, you allow to get yourself walked on, and then you blow up. And then it's a problem later on instead of just dealing with the problem right then and there. I think it's a lot weaker to just be, okay with whatever's going on if it's really not okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Brian Steiger, and yes, that's what I'll be putting on the the title, Dr. Brian Steiger, because you earned it. You did earn it. But dude, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate all your time, energy, and focus on this podcast and on the topics that we've discussed. And yeah,
It's
thank you.
been my pleasure, Joseph. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I had a good time. I think that I healed a little bit talking to you today and every day, for sure.
Yeah.
I look forward to continuing to listen to your podcast and see you grow and hopefully continue to help people. I know you're going to help people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. And for everyone out there, thank you for listening to me and Brian, our discussion on forgiveness. Follow us on Instagram at excelcast_. Follow us on TikTok at excelcast. We're also on Spotify, YouTube. Like, comment, share. Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And as always, stay blessed and excel.